So, you know, we've talked about your seeds and everything. We grow a lot of watermelons here in the South. And we got into the seedless watermelon thing a few years ago, and it can be troublesome. A lot of our customers have trouble growing them, and you do a lot of work with watermelons.
Yep, one of my main crops.
Yep. So I want you to give everybody a rundown of best practices on getting them to germinate, because it can be, man, it can be frustrating to get some of these germinated. So give us a rundown there on your opinion on best practices on getting seeds started.
Well, if talking specifically seedless,
Because seeded varieties normally anybody can get those up.
Yeah, seedless watermelons, the seed itself is physiologically different than traditional seeded watermelons. The seed itself is kind of like got an open.
A holler, would you say?
Yeah, that's the term that, I don't know if there's an actual term for it. There's a physiological term, which I don't know, but they're essentially hollow. And seedless seed will imbibe water really fast. And in doing so, that process will rupture seed membranes or cells inside the seed, and can really result in weak germination. And there's two kind of keys that your commercial plant raisers are using to grow seedless seed, maximize the return on the seed. One is moisture. So seedless seed don't need much moisture to germinate. I think it,
which is counterintuitive to what we normally think about seed starting.
Yeah, I mean, seed starting, you're taught to have plenty of moisture there. The general rule most of your plant raiser will use is if you use a real light medium, if at all possible, lightest medium you can, and then when you squeeze it, you need for no water to run out the bottom. It needs to basically ball up, and then it's about right. If you're running water out, you've got too much water in it for seedless. Second is temperature. Seedless require between 80 and 90 degrees for the first 36 to 48 hours they're in the cell to get maximum germination. And in that period, you don't water them. You leave them alone. Quite honestly, I tell most of my plant raisers, don't water until you see the seed sort of goosenecking out of the cell.
Really?
Yeah, you'll be tempted because the top will get
dry. You just want to go out there and
your mind's telling you that, and you can fish down in there, and if you see the hypocotyl, the root having emerged, it's germinated. But more often than not, people who struggle to get seedless seed germinated have either overwatered them, and that's mostly what happens, or they've tried to grow them too cool. Now, if you leave them in heat too long, they'll get real leggy on it. I know you had an issue in your greenhouse where they were, and that same thing will happen with seedless. So, but if you're between that 80 and 90 degrees, and the other thing is, and in the case of a smaller grower, if you're using a heat mat, which I know y'all advise growers to do, fill your tray up, put your moist water in it, and put it on the heat mat the day before you're going to seed your seedless.
Preheat it.
Preheat it. That's probably the biggest thing that the commercial plant raisers do. And
keep it 85 to 90 degrees. So that being the case, most heat mats only raise about 10 to 15 degrees off ambient temperature. So you're going to need to keep it in a 75 degree room with a heat mat to get it close to 90. So.
And then a lot of times growers will wrap them.
Yep.
I don't know if a traditional home gardener that really matters that much.
Well, what we've done is wrap it in saran wrap, the trays, and that seems to help. You got to pay attention, because I lost a crop that way.
Yep. Well, you're trapping the moisture in there because you're already going with a media that's not all that water.
Yeah, I wonder if you might not be as the water situation getting in that seed. I think if you are going to wrap them, I think you really need to pay attention to how much moisture is in that medium.
Correct.
Like you talked about.
Medium's the key.
Yeah.
And then where people will make a mistake is they'll come in at a day or two and they'll water, but the water temperature is 55 degrees, come out of the tap or out of the faucet on the back.
Right.
And most of my commercial guys actually have their water bins on the outside of the greenhouses will be painted black or dark blue.
Yep.
And that water will heat up.
From the
so they're watering with warmer water than well water.
I never thought about that. Cool.